Welcome to Life, Love, and Good Stuff. Father and daughter chats with David and Sophie McCallum. Here we discuss seeing and living life through the lens of self-love, how family relationships and life experiences hinder or fuel an authentic, rewarding life. A life filled with conscious, compassionate self-love. And sometimes we just have a good chat. Actor David McCallum has appeared in theater, film, and television and is a critically acclaimed author. David's most enduring roles include the Russian agent Ilya Kuryakin in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard on the CBS hit NCIS. Sophie McCallum was born in New York City where she lives today. Sophie's a certified life coach but specializes in self-love coaching as the SelfLove Peddler. Sophie is an energy leadership master practitioner and strives to start each day with love in her heart for herself and the world around her. I managed to get them both here at once. They can exist in the same room. They are not the same person. The proof is in the pudding.
Are you the pudding?
Yes.
I
have David and Katherine McCallum here, and I would like you guys to tell those listening.
What's your middle name?
Reynolds. You don't remember my name?
My middle name?
Keith.
Keith Reynolds.
Well, if we're going to play the name game
No.
No, we are. We're going to quickly just give my mom the spotlight she deserves. If you ever want to know what your porn name is, you take your middle name,
Right.
and the street on which you were raised. Mom, please tell the crowd what that name is for you.
Carpenter Longwood?
No, what was your middle name when you were born?
Eaton.
So say the whole thing.
Eaton Longwood.
Eaton Longwood is her porn name. So congratulations, no one can do better than that.
And I'm Keith Corsland. Yeah.
Keith, I'm Reynolds 62, baby. Anyway,
Won't be long.
after that inappropriate start, I thought it would be really nice to get some video recording of you guys talking about falling in love while your daughter sits awkwardly in between you. Not awkwardly, cozily. Tell me start with when you first laid eyes on each other. Who's going first?
Daddy.
I was in New York with a wife. We had somebody taking care of the 3 children back in California. I was staying at the Plaza Hotel, of course. That's where the NBC put me up. And I was told to go to Park Avenue South, 333 Park Avenue South, and where it was all going to happen. So I probably took a taxi and got out at Park Avenue South, saw the door. Not a very spectacular building.
Oh,
but I went in. A beautiful building. No high-rise or anything, just like a converted...
Still there today, right?
Converted brownstone.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. We genuflect every time we go past it. But I walked up the stairs, and I think I went to the 3rd floor. And the corridor went in. There was a door on the left and a lot of noise coming from the right, where they were building sets in a back room. And on the left, I stepped inside, and there, standing with her face close to the mirror, was Katherine putting on her makeup.
Actually, you didn't say it was Jerry Schatzberg's studio. That was...
Well, he did not have anything to do with falling in love.
He was the photographer.
I know
walking
that.
down corridors.
He was an adjunct. I'm talking about eyes.
Oh.
That's why in the book...
So I wasn't in the room. It was the dressing room.
Yeah, it was a dressing
Makeup
room.
was being
it was a
applied.
makeup table with lights and all that, but you were there. And I think one of the... Then we talked with Jerry Schatzberg, and he said, "No, let's go." He was building this set in the back, and I said, "What the hell are you building a set for? You got the whole of New York outside. Let's go." And we actually shot all the pictures in the Regency Hotel outside the Flatiron Building. It was just an amazing few days. But one of the first photographs we took was in the elevator shaft of the building, because there was an elevator, clearly. And Sherry Schatzberg was on the roof of the elevator, down almost on the ground floor. Katherine was up in the 3rd floor in a wedding dress, looking down, and I slid down the greased thing that held the elevator up. And I was looking down as I slid. We were both looking down because Sherry showed our faces. He was down there. And it's an extraordinary photograph. But much later on, talking about falling in love and doing crazy things, that woman sitting right there, or young girl, whatever she is or was, decided to take an entire box of fortune cookies and with a pair of tweezers take out all the papers. And one of the first ones that she substituted when I got the box delivered to me was, "Beware of a woman that is wearing a wedding dress the first time you see her."
Let me ask you, have you felt as if you have never lived up to your true potential? Do you hear a voice inside telling you that you're destined for more? Are you craving to love yourself more and live a fuller life? Welcome. My name is Sophie, and I'm your personal self-love peddler. I've created a program that allows you to forge into your most authentic life by guiding you on how to fully self-love. When we love ourselves and hold the space needed to learn about ourselves, our internal voice becomes crystal clear. When we start to listen to that voice, we begin to start living the life of our dreams. The path to getting there is paved with self-love. If you're a woman who does not stop to tune into self-care, to listen to yourself, if you ignore all the red flags and all the signs telling you that you are worth more, then you are exactly who this program is meant for. With the Flourish and Fly Learning How to Self-Love program, you will finally find the answers you have been seeking inside of yourself. We know children and even plants grow and learn best when surrounded by love, compassion, and encouragement. Guess what? So do grown-ass women. The women who work with me learn to nurture their true selves by turning their love inward, to grow and learn, to flourish and fly. If you're struggling with self-love and are nodding your head, yes, please click the link below and join me inside of this program. I cannot wait to guide you to flourish and fly with love.
So you put your own fortunes in every
I put my own
cookie?
fortune. Your lucky number is, and I put my phone number.
Any
Is
others
it
you
great?
remember? That's really good.
They were wonderful.
Oh, there were a lot.
It's
I
a whole
bought
box of-
4 boxes of cookies, and so that because you couldn't get the fortunes out of all of them. You know, you had to.
Right.
You had to
Where did one get 4 boxes of fortune cookies before there was Amazon?
at the supermarket.
Never seen them there.
And then we did a man from an NCIS where we were in a fortune cookie place. They were making the fortune cookies, and I thought Katherine should have come here. It was quite a place.
So how do you remember that moment he described?
The fortune cookie part?
No.
The
Backtrack to
when he came into the dressing room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had been reluctant to do this job that afternoon, that Saturday morning, but I had agreed to do it, and because I worked a lot for Glamour, and the man from Uncle had a very blonde actor and a very brunette actor, and so I was the very brunette model, and there was a blonde model as well, and my boyfriend at the time, Peter, had to spend the weekend be in the Naval Reserve, so I couldn't be with him. So the fact that I was doing this job was okay. I had something to do. And when Daddy walked into that dressing room, kind of something happened. And he was married and had 3 little boys in California.
Yeah, slight complications.
And I had a boyfriend. And I was 20 years old. You know,
And the show was big.
and I knew nothing about the show because I didn't have a television. The thing I remember being particularly overwhelmed by was the fact that this man I had just met had never been to New York before.
That was your first time in
He
New York?
had never been to New York.
It was one of the reasons I said yes to doing it, you know.
He'd only been in this country for a couple of years. And, Daddy had got his green card, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Green card. Because they asked him if he would play a part of one of the disciples in the greatest story ever told,
George
The Life
Stevens,
of Christ.
the great George
And he said
Stevens.
he would be very happy to play one of the disciples as long as it was Judas.
Really?
Yeah.
And so he had flown.
Never be part of the mob. Never be. You know.
Mob mentality, even in that?
Even in the, if you're going to a party, how many people are going to be? Oh, we're inviting everybody. Oh, I said, I'll give it a miss if you don't mind.
He had flown from the production of The Great Escape in Germany, right? Austria?
Yeah.
And he had flown to California to try out for the
To test.
for the greatest story.
Don't fiddle
Judas,
with your ace
sorry.
bandage because it's noisy.
He
That's what every woman wants to hear when
Yeah.
she's on her first podcast.
You're right.
Don't fiddle with your ace bandage. You're making too much noise.
I banged my knee. I'm sorry. It has bandages on it. My
Well, at
my
least
wrist
it didn't
too.
break.
He had come to California. He had gone to California to do that. And so he'd flown right over New York. I mean, I couldn't... here was a gentleman from the United Kingdom who had been in this country, the U.S. of A., for several years and had never been to New York. I mean, how is it possible? Anyway, we had a good time together, and something was happening.
And in the same dressing room, I said, I'd like to keep in touch. But one of us said it, or we both said it at exactly the same time.
You said it, babe.
And you know, it was a little awkward because I didn't want your letters arriving at my house with then wife and 3 children. But we managed. I took a post office box on Fairfax, and that allowed us to correspond for about a year, wasn't it? I mean, we did meet each other a couple of times.
Oh, not a lot.
We did.
Mm-hmm. You came to New York.
Didn't seem enough.
You came to New York. Do you remember? We met at the Elysee.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And then we met in Baltimore or
That's true. We
or
did
Chicago.
because you were doing all these things all over the place.
Yeah,
These
I did
Man
a
from
play
Uncle
in
things.
that.
No. It was Man from Uncle weekend appearances.
Oh yeah, in order to get the ratings up, I did 23,000 miles of traveling around the United States, just doing local promotions for the local mayor or whatever's going on, hanging from the rafters and doing the most dangerous, terrible things. But we got the ratings up, and The Man from Uncle was picked up for another year, and became one of the early shows to be in color after being in black and white.
Yeah, it was black and white the first year.
Yeah.
So this meeting and everything occurred 57 years ago. So
Is it now 57
57
varieties?
years
My God.
ago. Yeah.
We have a Heinz marriage.
Oh, that's really an
We
unfortunate
haven't
connection.
been married for 57 years. We've almost been married for 55.
So speaking of how long you've been married, can we do a jump ahead
Yes.
to your wedding day?
Okay.
Give me,
What was that, about 2 years later?
tell me about
2.5.
that day.
Well, there's a terrible, terrible tragedy in the between. Because Katherine called me and said, her brother George had been killed in Vietnam, which I'll never forget. And I jumped on a TWA plane. There were no seats, but they put me in the little lounge, where people went for drinks. And there was a seat belt, so I was okay. And we actually had an emergency landing at JFK on that flight because they couldn't get their nose wheel down properly. And I was thinking, this is not Catherine's weekend. But we survived that, and I met, I met the girl who was George's girlfriend at the time, Elsie Walker, and Katherine, and I still have black and white photographs of all that, and they are so vivid. It was just a dreadful. But anyway, as you say, fade out, fade in. We decided to get married and looked for someone to marry us. And her church, which I was delighted to go there and meet the minister and talk about getting married. And he said, well, I can't possibly marry you because you've been divorced. And I think I got rather irritated with him and said, it's really not the idea that I was brought up with, but if that's what it is, that's what it is. But Catherine's family is a network of wonderful people and friends, and one of them, Mrs. Whitman, she found us. Father Donahue.
In a Lutheran church.
In a Lutheran
Valley
church
Street?
in Valley Street.
Right. Because when we were married, in those days in California, when you became divorced, his daddy had become divorced, you couldn't remarry for a year. Mm-hmm. So we waited till that year was over. And then the Episcopal Church, which was my church, said at the end of that year, you may petition us and ask us to marry you, and we will take a year to consider this. And at the end of that year, we will tell you whether or not you can be married in the Episcopal Church.
Meanwhile, you have to turn up at the church on your hands and knees, and crawl into the church, begging forgiveness. I mean, the
wallet
whole thing
in hand
was so utterly ridiculous.
And Daddy had been raised as a Presbyterian, and the Presbyterians...
Your daddy.
Your daddy.
My daddy.
This
Just
was
clarifying.
the groom.
Yeah, we had our name on the pew.
And Daddy had... but the Presbyterian Church had suffered poor press because when Lawrence Rockefeller wanted to marry Happy after his divorce, and the Episcopal Church told them what they told us, they just said, ciao, and went across the street to the Presbyterian Church and got married forthwith. So the Presbyterians felt that was terrible. They didn't want to have their name blotted in that way. So they took up the same stance as the Episcopal Church, and it was ridiculous. It was totally ridiculous, causing me to not want our children to be christened in the church, because if that's the way they wanted to treat us, I'm not giving them my children. So that was that. We were married in the Lutheran church, where the minister had the right to decide whether or not he was going to marry a couple. And he decided he was going to marry us.
Thank you, buddy.
And that
He was a good guy.
He was a
In the
great...
Presbyterian church in Scotland, we would walk across over the canal bridge, and it was a long walk, and we'd go to Clonsaith, go to this wee church in Clonsaith. And one day the organist was sitting at the organ, and the pulpit was way above it, and the Bible fell off the pulpit and hit the organist and put him in hospital. And everybody was saying, what did that man do to deserve such a terrible accident? That's all I remember about that church.
So back to Valley Stream.
Yeah.
Not something you hear every day.
Right.
So back to Valley Stream.
So we were married in that church.
That's a good title.
But
It is a good title.
there were a gazillion fans outside. I was dumb enough to think that if I didn't talk about our wedding in any public forum, that nobody would know, and we'd go on our merry way and not be intimidated by the fans. But the problem was, not only were there a gazillion fans, but the local police had no idea how to cope with it.
And there was alcohol.
No, that now you're talking about the reception. I'm talking about the church still.
Oh, but the church, there were thousands.
And they were banging on the stained glass windows. There were additionally 2 hurricanes in the sky that day. That complicated things. And
a lot of rain.
Do you remember their names?
No, I don't.
Very curious.
No.
Easy to look up.
Yeah.
And so we went after the service. We went to the Hunt Club for the reception, and it was...
And
the
Catherine
way-
did a wonderful thing. You did a marvelous thing, because in the reception line, you whispered the name of
Receiving.
everybody, the receiving line, just before they got to us. And so I knew everybody by name and would use that and talk to them as if we were old friends. Trouble was with that, from then on, they assumed I
That you
knew
knew
who
they
they
were.
were. And I hadn't a clue who anybody was.
It was, in those days, weddings were held at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the reception was one long, complex cocktail party, with a huge buffet table with turkeys and hams
Life
and
was
every kind of
one long
hors d'oeuvre you
cocktail
ever
party.
imagined. But it wasn't a seated dinner the way it is nowadays. And the trouble was that when you ask everybody, as we did, everybody that we knew, that they not only all came because David was a big deal, but they brought
Still
their sisters and their cousins and their aunts. They brought their kids, and oh my goodness, it was a lot of
And the
people
cops.
there. And the cops were absolutely dumbstruck, didn't know what to do.
Well, they had the odd
but-
glass of champagne, too.
So when that was over, quite late, we got in the car to drive to New York, and I think I promptly fell asleep. It was really... And we didn't... And instead of going to the Regency Hotel, we went to the Carla, where my grandmother lived, my father's mother.
And put rose petals
And, yes.
over her.
And my grandmother's nurse, caretaker, who had been at the wedding, had come back and had told my grandmother it was a very nice party, but it needed leadership. She was right.
She was
She
50
was
and 50.
absolutely
She was
right.
called 50 and 50. I never know. Why was she called 50 and 50?
I think she was called 50 and 50 because she was asked by Uncle Sonny if she was of a certain nationality or religion or something, and she said 50 and 50. So henceforth
became
she
her
was
name.
always called 50 and 50. And
I also remember when we came from the church in the car, first thing you did is you took your wedding ring off and put it back on again. And said, now that myth's gone.
yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
so that's how we fell in love and got married.
I love it. We're going to do
Oh,
this
it's a
again
wild
because I
time.
like sitting in between you
Oh,
guys.
And then later on,
we're gonna keep going.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
sorry.
part of my work took us to, I can't remember where it was, but we were in a boat, a motorboat launch, and we were off out to sea in the Mediterranean in bathing suits back in those times with that music playing and everything.
But we saw Madrid, those pictures. When we
Was
What's
it?
the music? The Supremes, the Beatles.
Oh, well, the whole
Yeah.
60s.
Yeah.
The whole late
yeah,
60s
we had some
music.
great music.
And just those pictures. And what did the caption in the
Movie magazine.
Movie magazine.
Love Sails On.
Love.
That's before you were married.
Yes, saw
Yeah.
Madrid.
It is? Oh,
Saw Madrid. It was George.
I have that in my
It
bedroom.
shows you what I know, because I would have assumed we were well married
No.
by then.
It was.
That was the cockroach.
That was the spring of '67.
Yeah.
Do you know what song reminds me of you guys more than anything?
Baby Love.
Baby Love is a good one, but no, My Guy.
Oh,
I always picture you guys dancing to My Guy. And when she says, he may not be a movie star, but when it comes to being happy, we are. So what did you say? When she said, he may not be a movie star, you'd look at me and go, but he is. And on that note, we are ending this part of this podcast.
It's the other half.
But we're coming back for more later. Thank you for this. I love this.
you.
This is really fucking cool. Pardon my French mouth, potty mouth.
what's your potty mouth?
Hi, this is Sophie McCallum, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of the absolutely exceptional fans of my father's who have been listening to my podcast. I am the SelfLove Peddler. You can find me at selflovepeddler.com. And I work with women, as you know from listening to my podcast, to help them uncover love for themselves so that they can truly get to know themselves, so that they can have these lives that flourish into their wildest dreams. So I I didn't originally set out to do a podcast with my dad. I did a podcast with a lot of different people, but the podcast that I did with him, that one episode just resonated with me so much. I just had to keep going. I am so very, very, very blessed to have him in my life and to have my mother in my life. Every day that they are here with me, I know is a gift. And they have really helped me uncover my passion, which is, as I said, helping women uncover their passions. So if you or any loved ones that you know might be interested in working with me, I just launched an amazing course called Flourish and Fly, which is the basics to self-love. It's a super effective, fun, and efficient course that I really enjoyed making. And even when I watched it to make sure everything was in order, I got so much out of it as a viewer. So that was really rewarding, to create something and then to profit from it in my proof watching, if you will. I work with women of all ages. You may have granddaughters who you see on social media all the time or on their devices all the time. I know that can be really scary for those of us who don't really know what's going on there. It's a tough time to be a young woman growing up. All women are told that the future is female and that they hold all the cards, yet at the same time they have food, fashion, and diet industries telling them that they're not good enough and that they need to change to be worthy. So it's a tough time. There's a lot of dialogue coming at women from different directions, women of all ages. So just going to promote what I'm offering to the community in case there's a woman in your community, or if you yourself would be interested in checking out my course. I'm really extremely proud of it. Flourish and Fly. It's my calling, getting these things out there. And I really appreciate your help and your encouragement and your support. And for all you male Man from Uncle fans out there, I don't mean to exclude you. Thank you as well. It's a real joy sharing this connection I have with my dad with you. Every time I sit down with him, I learn so much. And sometimes I hear stories that I've heard over and over and over again, and I don't mind it for a minute. And I love that even though I've heard a lot of these stories before, you guys haven't. So it's a real gift to share this. And what's been really fun too is as we go through this process, at first I would come to our recordings with a list of things to discuss. And now when I see my dad, which is very often, we're quite close, he says things like, so I was thinking this would be a good topic, or that would be a good topic. And he's starting to think about this format and this forum that we have together. And he's so sweet. He's always learning, right? And always growing and always trying new things. As many of you know, he's writing his second book right now, and he's all in. And he's also still working full time and flying out to California to work. But he's started to bring topics to the table for us to discuss, such as energy, and that's never been like his forte, his playground, if you will. And it's not that he's taking my lead, it's that he is finding a way to be interested in what interests me. And he knows that through that, he will grow. And we can all learn a lot from him. He's really a special human being. And it's such a pleasure and such a treat for me to be doing this podcast. I hope we do many, 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 many more. And again, this is just a little interruption to say thank you, to plug my job, because I feel so strongly that what I do is providing a service that can help so many, and it brings me so much joy to share it with you. And I'm so glad that I have brought you joy sharing some more of my dad with you. And let's just keep it all going. So thank you. And more to come, I promise. Keep on listening and keep on being your awesome selves. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please hit the subscribe button so you're notified each time a Life, Love, and Good Stuff Father and Daughter Chats with David and Sophie McCallum podcast drops. Until next time, remember to lead with love.